To date, nobody has been convicted of the murder that shocked the nation nearly 3 decades ago. It remains one of the country's most high-profile unsolved crimes.
JonBenet Ramsey was just 6 years old when her life was sadly taken. For many years, her family dealt with painful accusations and questions. After 28 years of silence, her brother Burke is finally speaking out. What he reveals is genuinely heartbreaking. Join us as we share the real story behind the death of this beloved child, Burke Ramsey's revelation. It's been almost 30 years since the tragic story of JonBenet Ramsey touched the hearts of millions. The 6-year-old girl was found dead in her family's basement, turning what should have been a happy holiday season into a lifetime of sorrow for her family. Now, nearly 28 years later, her older brother Burke, who has remained silent all this time, finally speaks out, shocking the world. Burke Ramsey was only 9 years old when his sister JonBenet died. The media coverage that followed put him in the spotlight, making people suspect he knew more than he was saying. Many questioned the Ramsey family, looking at them not just with sympathy but also with doubt. They wondered if a stranger had entered their home or if someone inside was responsible. Now in his late 30s, Burke has chosen to speak out in an interview with Dr. Phil after being silent for 28 years. He shared his emotions as he reflected on that painful time. He recalled standing at his sister's funeral and staring at her tiny casket. He noticed something strange about her eyes. One of them didn't look right. This memory left a strong impression on him as a child. At that moment, he felt deep sadness. He admitted that he didn't fully understand what death meant back then. But when his father gently told him that his sister was now in heaven and then broke down in tears, Burke said he couldn't help but cry too. That moment in the basement when JonBenet's lifeless body was found changed everything. She was a young beauty queen, often seen smiling in her pageant dresses, but that image of innocence was replaced by the horrifying truth of how her life ended. According to reports, she had been strangled, her skull cracked, and there were disturbing signs that she had been taken advantage of. It was a nightmare that no family should ever go through. What made the situation even more intense was the terrifying ransom note left inside the Ramsey house. It demanded exactly $118,000, which oddly matched a recent bonus John Ramsey, the father, had received at work. The note was long, oddly detailed, and written on paper from inside the house, using one of Patsy Ramsey's notepads. Investigators couldn't make sense of it. They also thought, who would have the time or calmness to write such a long note in the middle of a crime? That clue led many to believe the person who did such a thing had to be someone inside. People did not expect Burke, the quiet boy who seemed to have slept through everything, to become the main suspect. Others wondered why he didn't get up during the chaos. They asked why he wasn't curious about what was happening or why he stayed in his room. Some thought he might already know what had occurred. When asked directly if he had hurt his sister with a flashlight or bat, he quickly said no. He claimed he stayed in bed, confused and unsure about the noise downstairs. He imagined something bad might happen, possibly a dangerous person in the house, but he felt he should trust his parents to handle it. Later, some noticed that Burke sometimes seemed to smile during the interview. However, experts explained that what looked like a smile was discomfort, a nervous reaction rather than happiness. As Burke spoke out, legal experts and reporters who followed the case offered their opinions. They remembered how Burke had become one of the most sought-after interviews in media history because he had never shared his side of the story until now. His father, John, once said that the media attention had torn their family apart. One day, a simple trip to the grocery store turned painful when Burke saw a newspaper headline accusing him of the crime. He cried right there in the store. Despite the pressure, John and Patsy did their best to protect their son and keep things normal for him. But how can you protect a child when the world is watching and judging you? Video footage inside their house showed a chaotic scene with investigators, evidence markers, and many unanswered questions. They found a flashlight that could be used as a weapon, a makeshift strangling tool made from one of Patsy's paintbrushes, and footprints. Some believed there were stun gun marks on JonBenet's body, but there were no apparent signs of forced entry. This lack of evidence led investigators back to the family. Why would someone cause such chaos inside the house but leave no sign of breaking in? Even Burke was brought into a police interrogation room. Newly released videos from those early interviews showed him being questioned carefully. Authorities looked into the theory that he might have accidentally hurt his sister and that the parents tried to cover it up, but no proof ever came forward. Burke Ramsey is now a software engineer and avoids the public eye. When he did speak, many people questioned his choices. Some felt he did not communicate well, despite no evidence linking him to the crime. People misunderstood his facial expressions and body language, not knowing what he went through. The mystery of JonBenét's death is still unsolved after all these years. The Boulder police chief recently reminded everyone that the case is still open. They are searching for answers and hope to bring justice for a young girl whose life ended too soon. Many people are still interested in this tragic story, possibly because JonBenet was so young. The case has wealth, beauty, tragedy, and suspicion. Or maybe it's because we want to believe that justice is still possible, even after so long. Burke Ramsey's recent comments have added new details to this complicated story. JonBenét's father, John Ramsey, surprised many with his emotional statements, leading people to rethink claims against the family. Stay tuned, as it seems the truth may finally be revealed. The fight for justice. John Ramsey finds it hard to accept that the person who harmed his daughter is still out there. He tries to understand how something terrible could happen and why justice has not been served. For decades, he has lived with this pain. His daughter was brutally taken from him, but the person responsible has never faced justice. John believes that if law enforcement had done their job correctly from the beginning, they would have found his daughter's killer. Instead of focusing on the real criminal, they spent their time suspecting the family, especially him and his wife Patsy. This early suspicion created a lasting stigma against them, even without real evidence. It left the family feeling isolated while grieving and forced to defend themselves amid their loss. He explained how exhausting and heartbreaking it was to deal with that pressure. They not only horrifyingly lost their daughter, but they were also treated as suspects by those meant to help them. It felt like a never-ending nightmare. John believes this narrow focus by investigators hindered the case from moving forward. By only looking at the family, they ignored other suspects and leads that could have helped. The mistakes made early in JonBenét's case worsened as the years went by. Investigators became defensive and were unwilling to seek new ideas, making it harder to achieve justice. John recalls how the strain of these accusations affected his wife Patsy, who passed away from cancer in 2006 without knowing who killed their daughter. He still carries the weight of her pain and is shocked that the same investigators remain involved despite their failures. He thinks they care more about protecting their reputation than finding the truth. Public perception of the case also suffered due to early media stories that targeted the Ramseys. These stories overshadowed the real motives and opportunities around JonBenét's death. Despite this, John remains hopeful. He believes advancements in forensic science and technology could uncover new evidence. For him, solving his daughter's murder is about achieving justice and preventing future tragedies while honoring her as a bright and lively child. It has been 28 years since the crime, and the investigation has gained new focus on DNA evidence. Could the truth finally be near? Stay tuned to find out. The death of a smiling child star. If JonBenet Ramsey were still alive today, she'd be close to turning 35. But instead of celebrating another birthday, the world still remembers her as the bright little girl who loved dressing up for child beauty contests. Sadly, she only lived to be 6. On the day after Christmas in 1996, her lifeless body was discovered in the basement of her family's house. She had been severely beaten and strangled. Her name became known across the country, not just because of her tragic death, but because no one has ever been arrested or convicted for the cause of her death. Over 25 years have passed, but the mystery of who eliminated JonBenet remains unsolved. The morning after Christmas was supposed to be a quiet and happy time for the Ramseys. Everything changed when John and Patsy woke up and found their little girl, JonBenet, missing from her bed. They panicked when they saw a handwritten note claiming she had been kidnapped and asking for a ransom of $118,000 for her safe return. Patsy called the emergency number, her voice shaking with fear as she asked for help. The police arrived quickly, but they did not secure the home properly. Their mistakes in handling the situation would affect the case forever. JonBenet was missing for 6 hours after the authorities arrived. Instead of taking care of the scene, people walked in and out of the house, touched items, moved things around, and disturbed possible clues. Substantial evidence was missed or thrown away. How the case was managed from the start made it nearly impossible to recover what was lost. Years ago, reporter Paula Woodward covered a case in Colorado, and she remembers the chaos clearly. However, she can never forget the moment JonBenet's lifeless body was found. Her father, John Ramsey, discovered her in the basement 6 hours after the police had been called. The only detective still in the house had told him to look around. This raises an important question. What if the officers had found her first? What if the body had stayed untouched? Instead, John picked her up and brought her upstairs, which experts say hurt the investigation. John shared the painful moment of finding his daughter. At first, he felt relieved that she was safe, but then sadness hit him when he realized she wasn't breathing. He was frustrated that the police quickly blamed him and Patsy. He believed their poor handling of the investigation allowed the real criminal to escape. He thought trained experts could have avoided many mistakes if they had handled the evidence and the crime scene better. The media attention increased when people discovered JonBenet participated in beauty pageants. This led to more public scrutiny of her parents. John and Patsy claimed their daughter enjoyed the pageants, but many people had already decided the parents were guilty. Years later, after Patsy died without knowing who killed her daughter, new DNA evidence cleared the Ramseys of suspicion but did not bring justice. In 2018, advances in DNA technology that helped catch the Golden State Killer gave John hope for answers. He learned about this technology at a lab that could solve the case. John Ramsey wants to retest the remaining DNA samples from the JonBenet Ramsey case using new forensic methods. With the help of C.C. Moore, a DNA expert known for solving cold cases, he believes this is their best chance for answers. C.C. analyzes millions of DNA markers, which helps find new suspects. Despite these DNA advancements, John faces major obstacles from the Boulder police, who have long seen him and his late wife Patsy as suspects. He asked the department to allow access to the untested samples, stressing that the time for excuses is over. John remains hopeful that modern technology can finally provide answers and justice for JonBenet, while necessary DNA evidence stays locked away. The situation is heartbreaking, mainly since no good reason exists to hold back information. It is upsetting if the delay isn't due to the need for transparency or a valid reason. In his profound sadness, JonBenet's father, John Ramsey, made a significant decision. He asked the Colorado governor to ensure that local police release the collected DNA samples. He believes this is a fair and straightforward request after all these years. John said he was touched by the comments from people who signed the petition. Many expressed that a young child was brutally taken and everything possible must be done to find her killer. Sadly, that is not happening, which deeply troubles John. He hopes new technology can finally provide the answers they have sought for so long. John stated they are open to any method or expert help to find out who harmed his daughter. If they try everything and still don't find anything, they will accept that, even though it will be hard. However, he believes not trying at all would be wrong. John is willing to take help from anyone who can advance this case, no matter their background. Interestingly, some help has come from unexpected sources. Recent releases of old recordings by a former detective named Lou Smith still support the case today. Lou's family believes the person responsible for JonBenet's death is still alive and hopes these recordings can help find him. Has the suspect been found? Let's see. The current state of JonBenet's case. John has gone through a lot of heartbreak in the last 28 years. He lost his daughter and wife, Patsy, to cancer, which caused him deep pain. The media's judgments added to his suffering. Even after he remarried John, tabloids continued to invade their lives. Through it all, John has looked for the truth about his daughter JonBenet's tragic death. He criticized the Boulder police for handling the case and admired retired detective Lou Smith. Lou believed that an intruder, not the Ramsey family, was responsible. Despite Lou's impressive work and thorough investigation, he faced criticism from local authorities. He eventually left the official team, but continued his investigation on his own. Lou gathered thousands of tips and created a list of suspects that the police ignored. He passed this information to his daughter, Cindy, before he passed away in 2010. Cindy is now committed to her father's mission. She collects DNA samples from potential suspects, hoping to match them to the unidentified DNA found on JonBenet. John hopes that new DNA technology will one day provide answers. However, he feels uncertain about whether the case will ever be solved. Without access to the DNA, he worries that justice may remain out of reach. He deeply regrets not being able to protect JonBenet, but he holds on to their love and hopes to be reunited with her someday.